is the Assistant Vice President for HCA Capital Deployment, Capital Productivity and Strategy. He is responsible currently for the capital productivity and execution strategies for HCA's design and construction with a $3.5 billion project portfolio. He has over 30 years of experience in leading a diverse set of supply chains from check printing, automotive parts, to power generation, operational excellence, and transformations. And he has a BS in Industrial Engineering and Systems Engineering from Ohio University and an MBA from Golden Gate University. He's a certified project management professional and a Shingo Prize for Operations Excellence Lead Examiner. So he is going to talk about all of his opportunities to infuse good practices into your professions.
All right, well, thank you. So I'm just going to walk you through what our journey has been so far with HCA. And again, we're a healthcare company, but my group focuses on the design and construction of new hospitals, renovations, additions, etc. So it's really a design and construction business, more or less. So I'm just going to walk you through this structure here, how we went from the mission all the way through results, and how we're using that to align. Really, we have a large group of folks that work for us. And then the cultural piece, of course, is the foundation of any of this. I think everyone's arrived at that conclusion within the last 10 years or so. I've been in process improvement for 39 years and worked at every angle possible that I could think of. So that's a huge, one of the huge changes I've seen. So what's important, two things on this slide. One is our mission of the company is to improve human life and the care of it. And the giving back piece, the reason why I took the job at HCA is when I went there, the CFO asked, or it was through the interview, said, well, we want to save 10% of our capital budget. And so my question to him was, well, what are we going to do with the 10%? Because I've seen it used for good things and not so good things. It was important to me to understand that, and essentially it was to reinvest it back into our capital deployment so that we could make more facilities available for our communities faster and have more services and capabilities. That was a big deal. The other one was the world's most ethical company track record, so that's pretty cool too. I was working in the power industry before that, and so we were the evil power company that had nuclear and coal power, and so this is actually kind of neat too. What we have in our organization is very small. It's about 65 people, and we manage over $3 billion worth of design and construction. So essentially, we leverage our partners, which are general contractors, trade partners, designers, to get the work done for us. So it's a highly leveraged leadership role that our group plays. In 2014, the company hired McKinsey Consulting to help them come up with a vision and some cultural goals. This is before I had been hired on. So I will tell you that the three goals were pretty good for culture. Those are relatively standard to have a good improvement culture. The vision, we started with that vision. I spent the last 4 years trying to explain that vision, and so we finally dropped it. And we went to the mission, which is more of the purpose. If you listen to the gentleman from Walt Disney, giving everybody figuring out what your purpose is super important. And then that helps the alignment. So it took us 4 years to get from real fuzzy to, okay, this is what we actually do, which is really stewards of the company's capital money. So through this journey so far, we've had to develop internally the 50 or 60 some folks that have, in design and construction, that world hasn't changed a whole lot for the last 100 years. Essentially, it's the same process. It's been that way. It's starting to change over the last maybe 10 years, somewhat, but the needle hasn't moved significantly. If you look at productivity figures for construction, essentially it's remained flat for the last 50 years. It's starting to inch back up. So that's a huge challenge for us. The Shingo model, if you're not familiar with it, it's a great model to work from. I'm an examiner for the Shingo Prize, so I'm real familiar with it. We started using that to help guide us, especially around enterprise alignment, which is really what most of what I'm talking about, is how to get everyone aligned, and then how do you enable the culture. So when I first arrived, we had a goal of saving 10%. So that we had a fuzzy vision and a fuzzy goal. And because we had a fuzzy vision and a fuzzy goal, there were literally 64. I made a list of them. I found out what all the priorities were, big priorities. We're not talking about, fixing small things, big things. We had 64 priorities identified that we were going to work on in 2015. So we narrowed that down. Finally, by 2019, this year, we're down to we're in a position where the leadership can articulate 10 priorities based on input from the folks that work for us, that work with us, and our own internal needs. Plus, we've now went from a fuzzy goal to a SMART goal, where we specifically know what we want to do and by when, so we can have folks rally around that. So a big lesson learned is just get it specific. It doesn't have to sound real fluffy. The other piece, when we first started, we'd have what we call roundtables. We'd have our partners in, contractors, designers, and it was really a one-way conversation. It was HCA telling everybody what we're going to do, and there was no interaction. So fast forward to last year, our partners are comfortable enough where we actually ask them what should our goal be from a long-term strategy related to cost and schedule, and what were the key, what do you think were the key initiatives to make that happen, and how should we measure it? So trying to build that buy-in, at least at the leadership level with all the different organizations that we work with. So if you're in design and construction, you know that if you want to go faster, it's going to cost you more, or you're going to suffer in quality. That's the paradigm or the current belief. Well, we want to do all three. So these are the six basic, I'm going to call them programs or strategies that we've been working with to affect all three. We started with cost, so we kept on going with the 10% idea for the last 4 years. Now we're moving to schedule, but we want to hold the other two at least constant. So I don't want to lose, I don't want to have to pay more to get faster, or I don't want to lose quality. So standardization, if you don't take anything else from this presentation, is standardization is one of the key enablers to improvement and getting buy-in. It was hard to get buy-in for standardization because in the design construction world, everyone has been taught to solve a unique problem with a unique solution. In other words, no two buildings can be designed the same way. Everything has to be custom. So we started changing that paradigm. At present, about half of our space is standardized, and really the most important portions of our space. We also standardize medical equipment, and then we're standardizing how we build our exterior walls, how we build our interior patient rooms and modules. One of the big ones we've had is air handling units. Today, if you talk with somebody in the healthcare construction business, the design for the air conditioning system is 90% custom, 10% standard. We flipped that. We now buy 90% standard units and 10% are custom. It's cut our cost in half. Sourcing, so the traditional approach is to have many people bid on your projects. So we've narrowed it down, our suppliers down to a select few, in some cases sole source, so we can aggregate the spend. In addition, so we take the standardization, now we're leveraging it into how we buy things. So that's saved us a fair amount of money so far. Also, the price index for those items has gone up about 11% average, and we've been able to hold it at about 2% over the last 5 years. Another key to improving your cost and schedule, and actually improving the certainty of the cost and schedule. So if you're in construction, it's a lot of risk management. You never know when you're going to finish, and you don't know what's going to cost. A lot of change orders. So we're moving from a serial model where somebody designs it over here, they flip it over to get it permitted, and then it gets flipped over to the construction guys to figure out how to build it and design the rest of it. We're doing that a lot of it in parallel, and using collaboration up front to make it happen, and manufacturing a lot of the components off-site in shops. So this has been it's a very controversial still in our department. It costs more to do prefabrication, kind of, from a cost standpoint, but it drives significant schedule gains. So most of you, obviously, if you get done faster, not obviously, In our case, most of our projects, if they get done faster, we earn money, we start earning revenue faster, we get to the market faster, so there's a lot of benefits around that. As well as the other part is schedule certainty. So again, our on-time delivery is about 50%. That's from 3 years, predicting from today, 3 years from now when we're going to actually finish that building. So it's not, actually sounds crazy if you're manufacturing, the on-time delivery needs to be 99.9, but in our case, it's 50%. When we use off-site, when we build the components off-site, our on-time delivery goes up by 30% so far, and we think it's actually going to take it better because you're out of the weather, you've got a predictable workforce, you've got standardized processes and procedures within the shop, so it's a pretty big leverage there. So that's the program level. So we start out with the mission. Finally got to a mission we understood. Then we went to an annual or a 4-year goal that everybody gets now. And then now we're moving to what are we going to do for the year. So we now do an annual plan. So the joke here is that in 2018 this was the top 10, but it was actually the top 14. We got to 14 in 2018, so we're now down to 10. But effectively, we've gone from really a top-down approach to a lot of interaction on what these items would be, but they're all within the framework of those programs I just talked about, or strategies. Okay.
You're fine.
So now we decide this is what we're going to do for the year, and in addition to where our program is headed, we have to communicate this to all of our partners. And again, they're all across the United States. We have over 190 hospitals, I think now, from the East Coast to the West Coast, mostly in the southern tier. There's probably, I don't know, I'm trying to figure this out and say roughly 20 to 30,000 people working for us at any given time, building all of our facilities. So anyway, to communicate where we're headed, we have several get-togethers. We do, of course, internally, we have all department meetings every month. We have an annual fall partnering meeting, we play golf, and then we have everybody in, and our CEO usually talks about where we're headed with how we're going to spend our capital and why. And then we go through results from the year, and what are we looking at going forward. And then in the spring, we do another session, which was coming up in April, where we'll talk about lessons learned and best practices, and then here's the plan for the next year. So we try to, and then we have offsites where we interact with our partners. That's more of an interaction type of approach, brainstorming. We've asked all of our major partners to hire somebody that understands lean or operational excellence to work with the teams that work with our buildings or our projects. So a lot of things around communicating the direction. I'll tell you, we probably just have scratched the surface of doing this. It's just massive, trying to get out to everybody. So moving from our annual plan, then we go to how do we infuse the programs and some of the annual plans into a specific project. So in this case, for our larger projects, this happens to be a bed tower we're building in Plano, Texas. So essentially, it's you know, if you've been in the hospital, it's the hospital roof, right? We're building a whole new tower there. So we got in this case, we brought the entire team together day one to have them, when I say team, it's the general contractor, mechanical, electrical, plumbing people, drywall people, a lot of the suppliers, the designers, the engineers, the civil guy, everybody that we could think of, and went through and came up with what is it we were actually going to try to do on this project. So that's not typically done in the business. Some places are doing it in California, but generally speaking, it's not normally done this way. So we did that to get the team on board early. And then we benchmarked, so we have a database of cost and schedule going back to the year 2000. So we're able to benchmark comps, I would say, for like-kind buildings, both in cost and in schedule. So we did comps for this building and benchmarked against those, and then that's how we set our goal against those benchmarks. So our goal is basically to finish 10% faster and reduce the cost by 10%. But the most important piece that is coming out of this project is the culture. So bringing everybody on board was pretty phenomenal for a lot of the folks that were in the room. We've never been asked our opinion up front on how to build this thing. So it disrupted, so the designers are used to somewhat designing in their own world, not having to interact with folks. And the contractors are used to just, here it is, go figure it out. So we changed that, we're changing that paradigm. So in this case, the superintendent there, Marty, who's got his hands up in the air, will tell you this project is, I don't want to jinx it, but it's about four months from being finished. But he's done, he's been doing this for a long time, and they're pretty certain that the schedule is going to stay as it is and meet the schedule that we came up with that they're trying to meet, and the cost. The only wild card we have right now is the elevator guys. So if you're in construction and you got to put elevators in, elevators companies could care less about your schedule, care less about your design. They're on their own, they're in their own world right now. So I would say if you could start an elevator company that actually listened to the customer, hopefully none of you are from elevator companies, I think you could really move the needle. So that's the only wild card that we know of right now. But it was collaboration and a culture. They put in an innovation board where people could put up ideas that they have and they would implement those. So other highlights, this project, we built 50% of it off-site. So that's what's really driving our schedule certainty. Most of the big stuff has already been built, it's already been installed. Now we're down to doing painting and some of the trades that are not that variable, or you can control the variables on them. So half of it was built off-site. Up to this point, we probably have built maybe 5 to 15% of a building off-site. So this is a huge step change for us for acute care. So that's like a hospital. Now we are now building what we call freestanding emergency departments. They're like dock in a box. We make those, about 90% of that's built in the factory right now, and the other 10 is plopping it on site and hooking it up. But that helped us go to this level with the acute care, because this is where all our spend is. The FSCRs are about 5% of our spend. So on the top left, this is we call that the traditional cost metric. We're tracking that, very transparent, both the hospital, all the trade partners internally, externally, because that's not always the case. A lot of the project managers, they don't want to tell the operating hospital where we're at with the budget, because then they want to spend more of it, get more stuff, and everybody hides all the information. So it's very transparent. The schedule, we're tracking the schedule, so those are two traditional measures or KPIs, and they're against the benchmark. But a couple of the ones we've added, this is not all, is how many on-site and off-site man hours are being expended. So essentially, what the guys will tell you is that working on this project is like a Saturday every day there. There's hardly anybody working there, because most of the work's being done in a shop or in a factory. That drives a lot of savings that we haven't figured out how to capture. Everything from I don't need as many porta potties on the site to parking to all these other peripheral things that happen when you got a lot of folks working. It's also the plan percent complete. This is really schedule attainment. Typical schedule attainment is probably 75%. It's kind of like world class. I think we're tracking around 90 on this one. If you're honest, it's around 75%. You can pencil whip that. So a lot of good benefits from it. We are replicating this on 4 other projects now since we went through this, and I think we've got a pretty good secret sauce. The other piece that we have been doing is lessons learned. So we've done it throughout the project instead of waiting to the end and going, well, let's go through lessons learned, and everybody forgets about it and we move on to the next project. We've done it all throughout the project. We've taken those lessons learned and applied them to the other 4 that we are now in motion. We also have codified in terms of a standard operating procedure and work and in videos. This is on our website. Anybody can go to it and download it. Competitor, we don't care. We try to benchmark and work with anybody. But how do you install? So the manufactured components that are built off-site, those are disruptors. Most construction folks are not used to dealing with those. Even though they'll tell you, well, we've done it before, but when they've done it once or they've done it a few times. So we had to create training videos so people understood, the contractors understood how these things get installed efficiently. And so we do that. So essentially we're going through the plan, do it, check, act cycle. So the check is, the metrics, the lessons learned, and then how do you codify that into a best practice to move it on. And we're just scratching the surface on that one. This is, it's still an initiative. We've had it forever, but how do we take lessons learned in the next project? We're working on it. So just overall, we track, of course, we work for the CFO, so we have to come up with what's all this worth, of course. So we track various categories, and so over the last, 5 years, we think we're at about a little over 377 million. This is through Q3 of last year. I don't have the fourth quarter results. I think we'll get close to 10%. But we're moving on from the cost focus. Now we're moving to a schedule focus. Since we think we've standardized a lot, we've gotten a lot of cost savings, and these are embedded into our processes now through specifications and procedures. So that's how we're doing the sustaining part, is essentially hard coding it into what we do. Now it's the schedule challenge. That's it.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you, vendors build in penalties if they don't meet milestones. Do you do that in your?
No. Well, the only thing we penalize for, or we incent for, is the closeout. We close out meaning that you get all the bills in, all the documentation. But no, other than that, we're pretty. If you're in construction, we're a pretty good customer to work with because we don't do a whole lot of that. But we put a lot of pressure to get done fast. So a lot of our partners will tell us that they don't. We go, well, we'd like to get the same team we had on this project. Could you move them to this one? We're like, well, those guys are pretty worn out. We're gonna give them a break from HCA and move them to a different project. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to follow up on one more thing.
Yeah, sure.
Skilled workers and like apprenticeships and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to find construction
Right.
people who, electricians and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then I apologize for interrupting you, but I'm curious about.
Yeah, it's a significant. It's having a significant impact on construction in general. What we've done to kind of offset that risk, one is in Florida, which is our biggest construction program. We entered into partnerships with mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractors here in Florida. So our general contractors pick from the 7 that we've identified. And so that has actually helped us through this part, at least in Florida, with them. So we're kind of on the priority list to get some of the labor that is constrained. And then the other piece again is the offsite. One of the reasons it's driving all of our offsite manufacturing is really we're transferring those trades to another workforce that's out there. And really, if you're building it in a factory and it's repeatable, you don't need the skills aren't as, you're not as highly skilled. You don't have to be as highly skilled to build in a shop environment versus out in a construction site. So that's what we're doing, is transferring it into factories.
So I just had a question. How do you get, because the normal process would be, you design it and then you get it ready and you go back to the customer and then send it off to the contractor. How did you find prefab contractors because
We didn't.
so that's what my point is. So they just magically made factories for you, or?
Yes,
That's a great question. That's like.
No,
Well, because it's not a normal, a contractor would go, I don't know.
Exactly. So right now it's a cross. I mean, we've actually stood up a plant in Alabama.
Yourself?
We don't own it. Somebody else, another company owns it, but essentially we were their only customer. Now they've branched out,
Okay.
which build all of our head wall, foot walls, and bathroom pods. And then we found another smaller company in Texas that we're helping grow. So that's those components. What we have. So then in Florida, because we have partnered with these MVP trade partners, and they know they got to do it. So through our projects, Harper, which is a big mechanical firm, they're building a new plant right now to build prefabricated components. And most of it's being driven because of us insisting that they do it. Miller Electric, which is over in Jacksonville, they're now in their next shop. They bought a fabrication plant, and then they increased the size of their own shop. So what we're doing is really growing it as we go. I know that in what's the city
Because
state?
you guys are everywhere, so where,
Yeah.
I mean, it can't just be here, so how are they doing it across? I mean,
Are you using like technology? So you're saying, I'm trying to visualize it, like, so if somebody has a bathroom, you just keep fabricating that same exact measurement of that bathroom, and do you have any technology that comes in and says, okay, morphs it? So you're saying like the skill, the art of construction is no longer an art, but more of a skill, and you don't have to be as skilled because
Yeah.
of that?
But you still have
Exactly.
to modify the design, it's not the same design bathroom every time.
In hospitals, maybe, yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's the standardization. So we had to standardize in order to do that initially, because we had to find people that actually can make these things, which again, we had to stand it up. So now that they gained some manufacturing experience, they're starting to invest into machines that you can write code, and then you can start to customize the sizes. But so up to this point, we've been using the standard sizes, and that's been a huge, it's been a huge battle. And the designers are like, well, I don't want to do that. They don't have to draw it anymore, so it's a cultural change there. So we had to go and kind of take a step back and standardize to actually move forward to start to customize again. So we're getting, thank you, we're getting better and better at it. So the company that's doing the interior components, everything was static, and now the second generation is coming out, and it's going to be I'm going to call it pop-up bathrooms that have walls where it's panelized, and we can stack pack it and ship it across the country, and then literally pop it.
Do you put them
up.
on trucks, or so we can, like, they come from the factory and then
Yeah.
you're shipping it to a place?
Yeah, yes, we
See,
ship
we're
it.
thinking of designing our house, so we want the bathroom this way and this way, but you're saying things are standardized based on,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah,
So-
we have a group internally that are nurses, doctors, folks that were in the field, and they helped us. We helped them, they helped us standardize the spaces within the hospital. So we have a standard OR.
So your
room.
hospitals are all the same, but for
Well, I mean,
those architects who work with other hospitals, that doesn't work.
That's right. We have partner architects and designers that we've been working with for 30 years. So we say, here's what you're going to do, and that has been an advantage. So we don't start from scratch and go, oh, let's see how we're going to design this thing. It's like, this is what you're getting.
Right.
Unless you're maybe the flagship hospital, and then you get some variation, and maybe the better finishes and all that. But
So that's.
it's huge. It's a huge lever, yes.
Yeah.
Did you, I don't know, I came in a little bit late,
Yeah.
did you talk about, like, what's your total spend for capital projects in a year? Like, it's gotta be billions, right?
It'll be $1.7 billion this year, I think, and we have about 3.2 in process, somewhere between design and finish up. Yeah, so it's
That's a lot of opportunity.
yes, it was how do you leverage scale, and for us to do that, we said, well, we need to standardize. So we're trying to standardize in a custom world. Everybody's used to.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
hospital the same.
And then, of course, any existing hospital, when we're plugging in a new floor, doing, expanding out, et cetera, that's more challenging, of course. But like, if we do a bed tower that's to the side, we can standardize every floor now. So between that, we've standardized, the plumbing, we buy the same sink fixtures. We don't buy whatever the designer thought looked pretty good in that bathroom. It's all the same.
But you still need the skills like an electrician, you still need the
Yes.
plumber to do, so those people, like, do you have like apprentices of that, Robert? Like, because an electrician gets $60 an hour at my my neighborhood,
Yes.
versus a nurse that only gets 40, so, like,
Yeah, so what we're doing is as we start transferring the work into a shop, depends on what it is, the labor force is not as highly paid as they are in the field, because again, a lot of the tricky stuff can be done by a machine now.
Uh-huh.
And also it takes less labor to do it. So even if you're paying $60 an hour for an electrician to do it they're doing it at table height. They're not up on a ladder trying to tie something together.
Right.
That's, if you ever try to do something on a ladder or on a scaffolding, so they're even the high dollar folks are more efficient in the shop. So that's why we're standardizing, and we're trying to move everything over as much as we can to get built in a shop or in a plant, and then we're helping just through our spend, because it's steady every year. We're helping a lot of our we look for trade partners that have a shop, and then once they have one, as I mentioned, we asked our major partners to hire either industrial engineers or folks that understand lean to go help them set up their plants and factories so that they're efficient. Right now, they're mostly inefficient. The most efficient ones I know of are in, what's the city-state outside of China? Hong Kong? No.
Shenzhen.
It's a,
Shenzhen's right outside of.
yeah, it used to be, I think it's Hong Kong? It's a little island city. I think it's Hong Kong. I may have that wrong. Anyway, they've gone in a big way into, the government there has just built factories to build highly automated meat factories to build components for their buildings. So at some point you might be able to order from there. Yeah, it's not been an easy thing to do, but it's been interesting.
So how much do you have to sacrifice quality-wise, standardizing this and going 50% pre-pack?
Actually, I don't think you sacrifice any quality. What do you mean by quality?
Well, quality
This is what I get asked when I talk about quality too. Go ahead.
quality meaning being able to design maybe a better product for each hospital, or maybe how much do you, by standardizing it, everything's the same. Some hospitals have different preferences than others. Is there any quality that gets sacrificed, or if you have at a manufacturing, it's not electricians putting together the fixtures.
So the latter is better. So the physical putting it together, how it's built. Now you're talking, what you're referring to is, if everybody has the same bathroom, is it the best bathroom we can design? And so what we have is a group that's about 100 people, not in our group, that work with the facilities to optimize how the people that work in them or the patients interact with the design, and that's how we build the quality in. So that's what we've been doing.
I mean, you gotta meet the code, so.
Yeah, that's part of
You have to
that.
have doorways, there's a whole lot of things.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
There is a lot to it.
Yeah. But I think, so I haven't really heard that it's, based on our surveys, et cetera, we usually get positive feedback. But yeah, there's a possibility
It
that,
could be different. I was just thinking from I know I have background with multifamily.
Yeah.
So quality-wise, everyone talks about modular construction. It's not that good because all your houses are the same. Different cities have different.
Yeah, the materials and things would have to be the same regardless, and hospitals have fire rating. I mean, you still have to use the same kind of materials, whether it's stick or not, right?
that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
basically,
so-
yes,
Yeah, you can't change from what the code says.
no. But I see what you're saying, and I would tell you that's a myth. That you
The
can't
modulars.
make something look highly custom. As a matter of fact, I think at some point, you're gonna have buildings that are gonna be designed in the future because they're being manufactured and standardized you're gonna have significantly more options on how they look than you do today. Even though it's like your phone, it's highly customized, right? But every iPhone is they change, the models, but they're basically the same thing. So it's kind of like mass customization is what we call it in manufacturing.
Are you guys working with machine companies too it seems like the world would be pretty large for you as HCA that goes outside of your realm of normal. So are you looking like special machines to make these fabrications, or is it just a standard?
So we aren't actually ourselves looking at that, but we're asking our
Yeah, that's why,
partners to look at it.
you're driving the
Yeah, we're driving it.
changes.
The best I've seen so far is we have company that's now building, and a lot of the general contractors are actually starting to buy plants, by the way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, you're opening up a whole new business.
Yeah, it's pretty, it actually, I've been in process improvement, started in manufacturing many years ago. And I feel like I'm back in the 80s where we're just starting to do something in this industry. It's pretty exciting, you know. I'm gonna try to hang in as long as I can. So it's yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a different question about how you structure these kind of issues that you work on, whether it's a renovation or a new facility.
Mhm.
How do you structure those particular programs? Do you have like a single owner who's responsible for you underneath doing the construction, IT on another end as part of a component of that program? Or do you build and then pass it off to a different group to complete?
No, we're end to end, which is another advantage that we have. So in other words, we in our group, we manage the IT piece, we manage the equipment, we manage the design.
Well, that's the first part, like the networking and the wiring and cabling and all that stuff, but then the applications come afterwards to run the hospital.
Oh, no, we don't do that.
But does someone actually oversee that, you oversee all of that work integrated together? Or do you do the construction first, the cabling, the wiring, and then turn it over to another group?
Well, again, so there's a component of IT that's within our group. They actually report to IT,
Okay.
but they go to every project, they are part of every project from the beginning to the end, so that they design in, not the app part, but all the physical stuff. Right, so they get all that right, and the medical equipment, et cetera, and then, yeah, there's a different group that puts the apps in from, you know, it's a corporate push through.
Right, but now my question is there someone at the top doing that in a coordinated way for construction, cabling, software, and all the other hospital activities? Or
Yeah.
just pass it over to another group once it's all built out? Just pick up.
Okay, yes.
And I'm asking this because I got a problem with my health system and how we do it.
Yeah, so there's a called facilities group, and once we build it, yes, so once we get it up, once we have it operational,
Okay,
we pass it to them, and then they pick it up from there.
okay, got it, okay, great, okay, thank you.
You mentioned process improvements in your background, and I'm just curious,
Yeah.
when HCA settled on the standard that they would use for all hospitals and the HCA for family, how did they come to the conclusion of what would be optimal for care delivery workflows, that kind of thing? I'm just interested to see kind of what that collaboration looked like
Yeah.
at HCA.
Yeah, we have a group it's called Clinical Services Group. So this is a corporate, but they work with the field so we don't really get into the operational side. They work on that piece of it, and then we collaborate with their experts, if you will, when it comes to designing the space. So what that looks like is we'll do we may hold some events around. So we're gonna update the emergency department. So whoever their experts are, and for the emergency department, you know, they'll do surveys with folks that are actually working in the emergency departments and kind of formulate what they think it might need to look like. And then we have our designers, and those folks get together and they do some design sessions to figure out what the cross between physically building this thing and then designing it for optimal patient experience and or the staff efficiency. It's a interesting one. Other questions?
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.